So, well, hey, looking forward to spending some time with you guys. David asked me to spend some time with you guys on, if you would, negotiating and dealing with different situations where we have to negotiate, whether it's like, it could be a contract, it could be, buying a car, it could be, there's like 1,000 different places to do that. First off, let me ask the question. I'm going to share screen, but I'm going to ask the question, is that a topic that's meaningful to this group? Because here's the thing, I've been coaching and training people in business development and sales, give or take, for about 20 some odd years. I can adapt, at least I think I can. So if you guys said, hey, or maybe we take the back end and we say, hey, what if you got a business development thing going on, if there's something that I can help you with, I'll just be an open book for our time together. And if there's anything I can do to help you level up your conversations, communication, whatever that might be, I'll be here for you and help you do that. Fair? Help people make money, have fun. Okay. So cool. Why don't we spend a few minutes on the negotiating piece? I'm going to start actually with something off back to what you guys brought up, if you guys don't mind. We have a philosophy in our business, and I'm going to get to the negotiating piece with you, but we have a philosophy in our business that if you can anticipate something might happen, that your best move is actually to diffuse that bomb up front. Call it out. And I heard a few of you sort of in your descriptions of people not showing and things like that. Sometimes it's interesting to actually, if you can anticipate it, actually bring it up front and anticipate it and see if you can get them to solve the problem for you. And we call it biggest fear, is the, if you will, selling term for it. And biggest fear could be, looking forward to seeing you next Thursday, 2 o'clock for the photo shoot. If you don't mind, if I could share with you, my biggest fear is that something might come up and would have to cause us to reschedule, and it would throw off the whole marketing for the month. Is there any chance that could happen, and how can we prevent that going in? Okay. Now that's just who brought that one up. And by the way, David, we're 2 minutes in. I'm already off script. Already. Didn't take long. Who brought that one up? Aaron? Okay. In the chat box for everybody, maybe Aaron, what's your reaction to that? But for everybody else in the chat box, is there a biggest fear you might put out that you'd like to diffuse, that if you brought it up front and asked them, how could we prevent this from being a problem, it might save you some trouble? Just curious in the chat box for everybody else, fire some of those out. But Aaron, what's your reaction to my language for that?
Yeah, I like it because it's it feels inclusive. It doesn't feel like you're accusing, you're like almost taking responsibility. You're saying my fear is, that this will happen. Yeah, and that actually might even work with that particular client, even though it's already happened, for me to say, yeah, hey, my biggest fear is that this might happen again. What can we do to mitigate that? Or what can we do to plan for that,
And by the way, I hope everybody listened to exactly the way that Aaron said that, because that was perfect. Because you said, what can we do? Okay. It's not what can I do? It's not what you can do. I think pronouns are important in that principle right there. And those subtle little differences make a difference in terms of the receptivity people have and whether or not they're going to want to change. It's not accusational, but it is collaborative. I'm just curious in the chat box, does anybody else have any other situations that they can think of where that might, where calling something out up front might be helpful? Just unmute yourself if you like, that'd be fine. Yeah, we get, is it JP?
So for me, a big fear is clients not kind of plainly expressing their needs.
Okay. By the way, you didn't call for this. Oh, ghosting. That's a good one. David says, JP, how would you phrase it? How would you phrase it with somebody that they might be reserved or they might not be willing to share as much information? Hit me with the words how you would use it.
Yeah, my biggest fear with clients is that they're not telling me how they feel or what their understanding is, because I'm here to help them. And if they're not telling me what they need, then I can't adjust and get them what they need.
Perfect. By the way, how'd that sound to everybody? If somebody said that to you, my biggest fear is that you might feel like you can't open up with me, and as a result of that, I'm not going to be able to help you. How can we make sure that that isn't going to be a problem together today? And one thing you notice is that when I use it, it almost always ends in a question that hands the responsibility back over to them to solve the problem rather than us. Did everybody hear that? Okay. JP, well done, my friend. Well done. I like it. File that one away. It'll help you make money, have fun, all that stuff. Cool. Is it Navin? Did I pronounce it okay?
Yes.
Were you going to chime
Naveen.
in? I saw the box lit up. That's 2021 for somebody who wants to say something when they go off mute.
Yes. So I think it has been expressed by somebody else as well. My biggest fear is somebody expressing their IT needs to me. I present a proposal, and we have what we think a very fruitful conversation, and then they stop responding to my emails, and then I'm chasing and chasing, and I don't know whether I'm being a pest, which I hate to be, or they are just not interested. If they are not interested, why don't they tell me? Right, that they are not interested, and I'll stop following them. So they will not say anything. They will just disappear from the face of the earth. So that is
Never
my
happened in
biggest
the history
frustration.
of sales, what you just described. I'm kidding. It happens all the time. Happens all the time. Okay. So everybody think about that, and we'll jump into our topic here. But think about that. My biggest fear is that we're going to put a lot of work into the proposal, and for some reason it's not going to meet your requirements and your needs, and you're going to be afraid to tell me that. I want you to know it's okay to tell me if what we present and deliver to you doesn't fit. I'm okay with no or no thanks. Okay. In fact, it's my second favorite word. I'm okay with no. Yes, of course, being my favorite word. Okay. But if you put that out there with people, it kind of clears the air. And here's the thing, as professionals, we can anticipate and we can see things coming a mile ahead. If you've had enough experiences, you can anticipate something occurring and you can call it out in a nurturing way. By the way, it's very important. Underline, 3 most important words in sales are nurture, nurture, nurture. Okay. And by the way, you're a real estate guy. It's not location. It's locate. That's what it is for real estate. In business development, sales, and in generating clients, it's nurture, nurture, nurture. Okay. Cool. Well, we're out of time. No, I'm kidding. We have a good time. You guys want to dive into some of the negotiating things? You guys cool with that? A few of you said yeah. Okay, cool. Let's dive in. Here's what I'd throw out to you. Part of where we end up working with folks on sales and business development and all that is around negotiating. And I want you to think about maybe 7 different areas where if you're in a conversation with somebody, you might find that any one of these 7 could be an obstacle for you getting either the best outcome for yourself or getting an agreement together, whatever it might be, that the following 7 items that we've seen get in the way of our ability to be able to go get agreements together. And I would just ask you, if you follow along with some of these, what you're going to find is that you can use them in a lot of different places. Okay, just in the chat box, you guys all get your fingers on the chat box. Chat out some situations that you find yourself where you have to do a little horse trading. You have to do a little bit of back and forth in order to reach agreements. What are some of the situations that you find yourself in? And I'm going to read those in the chat box, but I'll fire out a couple of them to you guys as far as these 7. And just again, as you're chatting those out, just ask yourself where you might level up a little bit, both personally and professionally in any of these areas. Okay, just as a business professional for that matter. Here's one for sure. And that is, this was a big one for me, is failing to recognize when the person you're negotiating with is really an artist at negotiating. They really love the art of negotiating, and they are a black belt, if you will. I just ran into this. I just bought a commercial property, and I see we had some commercial folks. I just bought, and I realized probably a little too late that what I was dealing with was an absolute utter assassin when it comes to negotiating. But I did realize it. Once I realized that, all of a sudden now, it was no longer really win-win. It was win-lose, because those were the rules of his game. And once I realized that, I had to shift, because I'm usually a win-win guy. How many of you believe, just show of hands, how many of you are just generally, look, I want everybody to win. Hey, there's people out there that want to take advantage of you, because I'm right with you. And if you don't recognize those people and that they are there to play the game, then what ends up happening is they steamroll over you if you let them, okay? And so number one is a failure to deal with a black belt and somebody that really is truly a player when it comes to negotiating. One more second on this one, just to file this one away. One of the things that happens here is that sometimes when you deal with somebody that likes the back and forth, if you don't play the game with them, they don't respect you. It's kind of the equivalent of if you're going to go out and you're let's say you're decent at tennis, you're going to go out and play tennis, you go out for a match and you crush your opponent 6-0, 6-0. You didn't really enjoy it. You won, but you didn't enjoy the event. That's how they look at it if they don't see some back and forth. So you got to, number one, recognize a player when it comes to, if you will, a black belt when it comes to negotiating, and play the game win, 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 lose, okay? And figure out what that's going to look like. There are times when win-lose is not a bad thing, okay? If somebody's got, if somebody has your child and it's a hostage negotiation, if they have my kid, believe me, win-lose is going to be a fine option. If I win and that other person loses, that's going to be okay with me. And there's actually quite a few situations where we run into that. Here's number two. Starting off with a weak negotiating position. I'm going to ask this question of you, and you don't need to answer out loud, but I'll ask this question. How many of you recognize that internally you don't believe you're a good negotiator? Okay, again, you don't have to put hands up, but if you're saying to yourself you don't believe you're a good negotiator, you will find a way to prove yourself right in every negotiation. You will screw it up, because as human beings, one of the things we've witnessed is we are in a constant process of proving ourselves right. If anybody's ever witnessed this, we are in self-justification mode at all times. So if you believe that you have a weaker hand, if you believe that you aren't very good at any type of conflict, you will prove yourself right. Let me show you a model. I love this model. This is a model of thinking about how we prove ourselves right. Here's how this works. We start with a belief. This is a self-justification right here, self-fulfilling prophecy. We start with a belief. We look for evidence that we're right. Every time you negotiate poorly, you'll prove yourself right. And as a result of going into and finding evidence, we will take actions that support our belief. We will get results, and it will support the overall belief when we started off. Our brains are in justification mode, and we're in self-reinforcement mode to reinforce our own beliefs. Real quick, does this make some sense to everybody? This thing is super powerful as a concept. And I'll be curious in the chat box if anybody has one, but I'm not going to go political, I promise. But no but here. But I'm going to throw this out. It's been fascinating to watch the last few months of what's gone on in the United States, in that people have a belief and they are constantly reinforcing that belief by looking in certain places to justify their rationale and their logic. And I'm not, it's not a judgment one side or the other as far as politics, but it's, is anybody else seeing this? Or is it just me? Okay. Yeah, it's crazy. There are TV channels built to provide evidence of your own beliefs. They're right there. And it is, Aaron, it's a feedback loop. Here's what's interesting about this is that these things form habits, and these habits actually create reinforcement or rewards, like you're saying right there, Aaron. And here's the reward. If you are a poor negotiator, that's your belief, and you look for evidence that you are not good, you don't do any of the steps that would be necessary to help you negotiate better. And as a result, you get taken advantage of, you get a payoff or a reward. And the payoff psychologically is that you get to prove that you were right about something, and it reinforces your identity. Okay. And so what ends up happening with that is it's really helpful to reshape your belief going in, whether you believe it or not. Lie to yourself would be my suggestion. Okay. And tell yourself you are something that you're not, because at least then you're going to look for any supporting evidence that supports that belief. It's a big topic. Okay. Really kind of cool though. Let's look at number 3, making unilateral concessions. A unilateral concession is that if somebody asks you for something, that you just agree to it without asking for something in exchange. Okay. Now, let's say you're in a business situation and somebody asks you for whatever it might be on your side. Think about your business. Somebody asks you for something. Think about what you get asked for a lot. What's something that you could ask for in exchange that if you were going to give something away, that you might get something back in exchange? Real quick, who's got something in mind? Andrew, you got one by chance? And if you don't, it's okay. It's cool. I'm just throwing it out. No? Okay, cool. Oscar, you got one? Rachel? I'll just throw it out if you got one. What is it somebody asks you? Aaron, what you got, my friend?
Someone recently asked me to drop my rate, lower the price. And sorry, what was the other?
What if you did lower your rate? What might you get in exchange? What could you ask for in exchange that might be of equal or greater value than what you're giving up?
Oh, well, the first thing is not lowering the rate, but lowering the price for them. So not lowering my hourly rate, but lowering the price for them. So that's usually my first, I don't know if that's right or not, but it's usually my first response is, I can't lower the hourly rate, but I can adjust the package if it's not, if this price isn't in budget for you, so that we're delivering, an adjusted
so what product. You can do is lower the deliverables,
mm-hmm.
and that's what you would be asking for in exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so you're absolutely spot on with it. Andrew, what you got, my friend?
Yeah, Mark, I actually have this situation is coming up in a few months here where I have a 3-year car lease that's coming due. So I have a buyout price that was agreed to, except the dealer is going to want to probably move me up into something newer, more expensive, etc. So there is definitely going to be I know they want me to buy something from them. They don't want me, or they're going to try and push me into a new lease to kick the can down the road and keep the payments coming, right? So I know they're going to want something from me. I'm also going to want something from them in the extent that I don't want higher monthly payments. So this game is coming.
Yeah, and so right there, if you prepare yourself for it going in, you're going to be in a better spot. Okay. By the way, I wasn't planning on doing this. I'm going to do this super quick. And David, maybe you can chat me how much time we have left on the clock, so I'll keep an eye on it. But let me throw this out. Aaron, in your situation, and Andrew, in your situation, there is a 3-step, if you will, negotiating plan that you can put forth. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but since we're here on the topic, I'll throw it out to you. When somebody asks you for a discount or for something, a lower rate or something along those lines, and this applies to some of you for sure. Number 1, stroke and assure. Okay. Number one, stroke and assure. Here's what that sounds like. Aaron, I appreciate you asking. I assure you, you're getting, really our best pricing. A lot of people just ask because they think they can get it. And a lot of times they do get it just because they ask, and they're being reinforced that it's okay. So step one is simply to stroke and assure, say something nice, appreciate you asking, sure you're getting the best price. Two, sweat and struggle. Okay, you got to do a little acting here. Jeez, I sweat and struggle a little bit. Make them feel a little uncomfortable for asking. Those two moves alone will wipe out 70 or 80% of requests right there. Okay. If you need to go to a third move, the third approach would be give, but get. Give them something, but maybe you want to get a referral letter or Google reviews, or you're providing less, or you want to get referred in somewhere. Could be a million different things that you can ask for, but don't make a unilateral concession, because in part, people don't value what they don't pay for. So you're actually giving something away and you're lowering your overall value to them by doing it. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's look at number four. Number four might be talking too much. This one's pretty straightforward. By and large, the more time we spend talking in a back and forth in an exchange, the worse things are going to get for us. Okay, so the less you say, and I would write down, if you're thinking about, use silence to your advantage. Just get quiet every now and then. When you don't know what to say, shut up. Your best move is to say nothing to the other person whatsoever, and just let it be uncomfortable. Okay, nothing wrong with that. I'll toss this out to you guys as well with respect to this one. If you do speak, by and large, when it comes to any kind of negotiation, you're better off to ask for something than you are to, you're better to make a statement than a question. So for example, can I get an additional 10% off of this? Let's just say, is not as effective as saying, in order for us to make this work, I'm going to need you to be at this number, 10% lower. That is a more stronger position to come from, and it's pure technique. Once you kind of do that and start to get your head wrapped around it, it just becomes pure technique. All right, number five, losing control of your emotions. I'll keep this one pretty straightforward. When you get emotionally involved in any situation, a terrible thing happens, and that is that you can't problem solve. Your kids, your family members, yourself, when you get emotionally involved in something, you can no longer see and think clearly. So learning how to stay in what we refer to as an adult mindset, which is your rational, logical mindset, when you stick in that way of thinking and don't allow yourself to get hooked, that's the term we use for it, emotionally hooked, you're going to be in a better position to navigate through any conversation. Okay. Let's look at number 6 and 7, and then we'll open it up. Number 6 is kind of coming in unprepared. That's pretty straightforward. I think if you know, number one thing I would share with you about this is know what outcome you're willing to accept and have that written down before you go into anything. What's your best walk-away position defined in advance? I prefer it written down, because when you write it, you own it. And you're going to find yourself being able to navigate towards that goal, but just even having a little bit of time to think through what you want as an outcome will help drive you to the result. Last one I'll throw out to you is thinking that it's about money. And here's what I mean by this. Most transactions really don't come down to money. they come down to one person having a pain or gain potentially, but usually a pain that they want out of their life, and the other person being able to solve that pain. So the person who has the most to lose is the person that typically loses, at least if they have that mindset. But rarely is it a dollars thing. Usually it's the real underlying issue is some motivational pain that someone needs to have fixed. And that's the real reason why people pull the trigger on things or don't, as the case may be. Okay. Now, with that, David, I'm going to open it up with you, and I'll let you manage the clock here. But I wanted to throw those out. You guys asked if we could take a little bit of time and run through those. I wanted to do that with you. But let me kind of open it up to the room, and we can take this in any direction you guys want with respect to sales or communication or business development or growing your business. Can't help you with marketing. Can't help you at all with marketing. I can tell you what not to do with marketing. I got that one down. Cannot help you with marketing, but sales, business development, new clients might be able to help. David, cool. Let me pass it back over to you if I could. He is on mute. Said no one ever.
I got to click harder. Aaron, you have a question? Go ahead.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah. So my question is, one of the people that I consider to be one of the best negotiators that I ever knew, she would say sorry a lot. She would often open with, "I'm sorry, but," and then, continue. I was wondering the efficacy of that. Is that a big no-no? We're told to stop saying sorry so much as women a lot, and I was wondering what you think about that.
Here's my first reaction to that is that if she was good, she was doing it on purpose. Okay? And that would be my guess. We have a rule, we have 249 kind of rules about selling and business development. And one of the rules is a professional never does anything by accident. My guess is she did that purposefully, and it worked for her, and it was sweet and disarming enough that would take people off their game and yet still get some buy-in. So to me, Aaron, part of that is developing your own style for how you engage with people. And as long as you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's pretty effective. I love the question, though. Cool. What else we got?
I've got a question. I think someone else alluded to it earlier a little bit. I can't remember who, but what are some of the factors that go into how frequent you bug a prospect? How often do you keep after them? Is it, I know there's no hard and fast rule. Is it weekly, every other week? It depends on certain factors. What kind of factors do you think of when you consider that frequency?
And this is follow up to somebody you've already had conversations with?
Yeah.
Okay. So couple thoughts about that, David. By the way, does anybody else deal with that? Like, how often do I check back with people? Okay, cool. All right. So, okay, another Sandler rule: the problem the prospect or customer brings you is never the real problem. I'm going to take that rule and I'm going to apply it right here. I would go upstream of that question, and I would ask myself, when I leave every single interaction with somebody by which there's going to be some transaction, am I leaving that interaction with what we call a clear future? A clear future is a time, date in the calendar with both parties know what's going to happen in the next event. So if you and I are talking about doing business together, David, and we finish up, I'm selling, you're buying, I want to make sure I end that meeting with, look, it sounds like you need a little bit of time to put this together. What do you say we get a time on the calendar next Thursday, 2 o'clock? We'll take about 20 minutes, answer any other final questions. And at that point, you can tell me whether it's something you want to pursue or not. And I need you to know, David, I'm good either way. It's going to be fine. Okay. But that's a cleaner prevention strategy than it is the back end. Okay. Trying to figure out how often to follow up. And I'll add something else to it, but Nancy wants to chime in. So Nancy, please.
Yeah, I typically do that when I'm talking to clients where it's like, okay, I'm going to call you on this date, or we're going to have a meeting, or, you know, the follow up. But I think a lot of times clients' schedules change, or they, at that point, ignore you. So again, can you maybe take that in the next step further, and then what do you do?
Yeah, again, by the way, there's an answer for everything, right? And it all works in theory and in meetings and whiteboards. You know, but in reality, it does. These things do work very, very often. Nothing's going to work 100%. You're going to have people not show and cancel and all those. But that feels like, especially if someone's done that to you, that may be an opportunity for biggest fear. You know, where you're going to come back and say, look, you know, I just want to make sure that we're on. I'm putting this in my calendar. So I'm going to lock it in. Do you have it locked in as well? I just want to make sure we're on the same page together with it. And you affirm it, put it in concrete, so to speak. Okay. What you want to listen for are wishy-washy words. Okay. Any form of wishy-washy, you want to call it out in a nice, nurturing way to see if they're not fully committed. Why would you be as fully committed as them? Nathan?
Yes. So I have this particular challenge. For example, right now, after this meeting, I'll be going to a prospect. He wants us to do a DFARS assessment, which is for defense-related companies. He wants to do a cybersecurity assessment through us. And it is a pretty expensive assessment, around $5,000 to $6,000. And he's a pretty small businessman.
Time out. You don't know if it's expensive or not. That's in your head, not his yet. Okay. Can you scratch what you just said?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. We don't know each other well enough, but I had to call it out because it's right there in front of me.
Yes.
Amanda's smiling. I'm not sure why, but she's smiling.
She's smiling at my situation. So how do I find out the budget of my prospect, whether he's going to be able to afford me? That is the question on the top of my mind.
Sure.
When I go and see him today.
All right. Again, I'm like opening up all the stuff, right? As fast as we can go. Okay. So I'm going to give you everything in our world is like a system. It's not necessarily a script, but like there's best practices. So one best practice with that is just to ask him. I said, do you guys have a budget set aside for this, or is there an amount that you're thinking this is going to be? Now, a lot of people don't know what our services are going to cost. Okay. So they don't know. So I'll give you a three-part answer. You might jot it down. I'm going to do this quick because of time, but okay. Here's a three-part answer. Number one, it's not a quote, not a proposal, just kind of ballpark for us to know we're in a range together. Number two, when we've helped other firms with their security issues like what you've raised, it's usually been between $8,000 and $12,000. Okay. The second thing I just did is I just did a third-party reference and I gave you a bracket. Okay. The third thing we're going to do, and a tool we teach, is called a reverse. The reverse is just asking you a question. David, is that somewhere in a range you would think would make sense for you guys to invest in? And now I've put it back on you to tell me whether that range is going to be within a spectrum that you can tolerate. Okay. So number one, not a quote,
come
not
back
a proposal.
With the third one.
Yep. Number one, not a quote, not a proposal.
The
number two, third-party references. We've helped other people fix this. When we do, it's usually within X and Y. That's a bracket. And number three is just ask them a question. Is that within a range you would consider? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Cool.
Yes.
I see you're a CMIT guy. We done some work with you guys. Cool.
I have taken Sandler training myself.
Yeah.
For 1 year, but still, I haven't been a pro like you.
Well, that's kind of you to say.
It's very tough to implement. Yes.
Takes practice like all things. That is true. All things. Cool. And again, I'm going to look back to David. I think Andrew had something, but I'm going to let you manage time, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, thanks. Mark, I have a handful of friends actually in the professional sports sales world. And I remember this was a few years back, there was a reference to a kind of a FOMO tactic where this was kind of, again, a second, third, or fourth a kind of attempt at getting somebody back on the radar, back in the conversation. And I remember it struck me as pretty aggressive, more of a, hey, just checking in again, you may be too busy for this, and that's totally fine. I know, everyone has busy lives, but this deal can't sit around forever. I'm going to find somebody who's a little bit more interested. Please let me know. It's a reverse psychology. I was curious on your thoughts on that, and if you use that.
We do use it. I think Sandler invented it and created it, although it's kind of hard to go prove it. But we do it in a nurturing way. It can be a little bit of a unpleasant if it's done in a bad way. But hey, here's how it might sound. Hey, Andrew, I've reached out to you a couple of times, haven't heard back from you. I got to think at this point that our project or our working together is not something top of mind. If I don't hear back from you, I'll go just close the file on this opportunity for now. If I got something wrong, reach back to me. But otherwise, I wish you the best. Loves and kisses, Andrew. Okay, leave the love and kisses out. Okay, but the idea is put a line in the sand. It goes back to David's question earlier. We can only follow up so much until we start to feel like an annoying fly buzzing around their eyeballs. Okay, so at some point we have to come back and draw a line and say our time is valuable too. How are we going to play this game? Are we in or are we out?
Do you have a set, is that just a relative point, or do you typically teach a set number of points of contact?
Actually, Andrew, it depends a bit on the sales cycle. A really long sales cycle, it might be a little bit longer. But usually, and this goes to David's question, which I tactfully avoided earlier, and I didn't mean to, it's just how things went. Usually 3 or 4 follow-ups, about the time when you start to feel like you're being annoying and they're not responding back. That's about the time you want to pull the trigger on it.
Thank you.
By the way, in the chat box there was a question about a good book. That is my favorite book that you guys called out, is the Sandler book. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar, and that is the Sandler kind of core principles and Bible, as it were. And also, my friend, there's a Sandler book that just came out on negotiation by Clint Babcock, who is a good friend of mine as well. But that book, it's in the chat box, is an excellent book for overall principles. Cool. All good? Yeah, we got JP.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any.
We'll get JP here real quick, and if we got time, go ahead, please.
In kind of the 7 deadly sins, the whole preventing yourself from talking and staying silent. I wonder if you had any kind of mental thoughts or techniques, kind of fighting that nervousness or urge to kind of like fill the void.
Yeah. Look, I could tell you my biggest fear is that I'm going to talk too much in this and I'm not going to listen. Would you hold up a hand if I speak too much or whatever? But I think really, here's what I would share with you better than anything else, JP. There's going to be an uncomfortable feeling when you're quiet. I think one of the greatest things that we can do in life is to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is the sound and the feeling of you growing, is when you're uncomfortable, let it ride and just live with it. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. That's one of the 248 Sandler rules. So with that in mind, I would say the only way to get comfortable with it, and you'll maybe never be fully comfortable with it, is just to do it and live through it. Make sense?
It does.
Cool. I hated roller coasters with a passion my entire life. Grew up in total fear of them. At the age of 40, I went to an amusement park and started with the tiniest little roller coaster the kids would riding. I was actually too big to ride it. They didn't want to let me ride it. And I rode it until I didn't care anymore. And then I went to the next one and the next one and the next one. Day 2, I'm going upside down, pretty much falling asleep because I had ridden the roller coaster so many times. Okay. And you just have to do it enough that you just don't care, but you got to face that fear and be uncomfortable.
I think we have time for one more question, Naveen.
Yes. So Mark, you just mentioned a negotiating book from Clint Babcock.
Correct.
Is there any other negotiation book that you would recommend to us? Somebody who wants to become a pro in business.
You didn't like the Clint Babcock one? No,
is that one book that you would suggest? I would buy that, in fact.
Yeah, Clint Babcock wrote a great book on negotiating. Also, by the way, there's a guy out there right now who's done a lot of stuff, and Chris Voss is his name. He's got some good stuff as well. Don't Split the Difference. That's a good book. There's a lot of Sandler principles that we see inside of there as well.
He does the master class, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Which is correct. Which, by the way, is a good thing. If you're a lifetime learner like me, I've enjoyed masterclass. I'm on year 3 or whatever. I just pay for it. I don't watch any of it. I just pay for it. But I'm kidding.
I'll second that. I just got the masterclass program last month, and I've done, I don't know, the first lesson on like 6 of them, and I think I'm on the 6th or 7th lesson of the Chris Voss one. It's excellent.
Yeah. And by the way, I think in situations like that, back to the, be comfortable being uncomfortable, go look for things that go watch and experience things that you would never normally go watch. Like I've watched the interior design one. I am the worst at that. I'm so far out of my league, but it's fascinating to watch the way people think and how they process things, and to learn about something you have zero really experience in. It's been kind of cool. I've kind of become a bit of a TikTok geek, and I hesitate to say that to people because they think it's just like dancing stuff, right? There's a lot of things on there, content-wise, educational-wise, that I've learned that I would have never have seen if it had not just been fed to me with a random 60-second video. So I've been impressed. And everybody smirks like David when I bring that up.
Well, we're going to wrap up. We're always on time, right, Natalie and Amanda? No, but yeah. So a big Zoom round of applause for Mark. Thank you. He's got his contact information up here. He's obviously for hire. He's in the business of doing this. And so if you're interested, hit him up. And again, personal testimony, we've been using him for a year, and it's been great. I'm going to pass it off to Natalie. Thank you all for coming. I hope this was useful. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you can bring some of this stuff home personally. I wrote down biggest fear. Pronouns are important. No is my second favorite word. I love that. Stroke and assure, sweat and struggle, and if you have to, give it but get. And make sure you've got a clear future, a specific time and date to follow up. So those are my kind of takeaways.
That's great.
Thanks for coming. Natalie, it's all you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. I just wanted to let you all know that we do have some upcoming events. I put the link in the chat box if you want to grab that to our event page. But we have a speed networking event on Thursday, the 11th of February. It's our Thirsty Thursday with the Greater San Fernando Valley Chamber. We have our Good Afternoon Long Beach on the 9th of February. And then the next Young Professionals event will be a social on the 24th of February, and that'll be at 4 p.m. It'll be a little different than this one, but we cannot thank you enough, Mark, for all of these tips. This was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank
Nice
you
to
all
meet
for
you.
Great
joining
talk.
us.
Learned a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
I'll stick on the line if anybody needs it. Awesome.
Thank you. Bye.